So thank you all for joining us today at the SheFighter Empowerment Zone. My name is LINA KHALIFEH, and I'm going to be your host for the next 30 minutes, whether you like it or not. I decided to come up with this show idea to highlight the voices of women, entrepreneurs, feminists, and martial artists all over the world to share their experiences with everyone. I mean, who's better to interview a martial artist than another martial artist? It's the best, right? So today my guest is joining me in a discussion about why women should be or must be in martial arts. And she's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter, athlete, feminist, and activist. She works with organizations, collectives, and individuals in building and strengthening their campaigns for combating gender-based violence. She uses self-defense training as a channel for supporting women and girls in their journey of liberating their bodies, reclaiming their agency, and accessing their inner power. Please help me in welcoming all the way from South Africa, Christy. Yeah, we don't have like this music to introduce you. Thank you so much, Christy. And by the way, for the audience, feel free to write your questions as in the chat box. As we move in the discussion, I can ask Christy at the end all the questions you have in mind. So thank you so much, Christy, for joining us. And my first question for you would be, Christy, what got you involved in martial arts in the first place?
All right. Lina, firstly, I just want to say thank you so much for having me here. I know that this is the first of a series of conversations that you're going to be having, so it's a real honor for me to be here and share the space with you. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, so what got me into martial arts in the first place? So currently I'm a Brazilian jiu-jitsu athlete, but I actually started my martial arts journey in capoeira, which is also a Brazilian martial art. And I was in high school at the time here in Durban, South Africa. And a friend of mine had heard of this really cool thing that she was like, it's like karate, but it's not called karate. And she really wanted to try this new exercise form out, and but she didn't want to go on her own. So she said, please, Christy, can you come with me just for the first session? And I was like, great, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'll totally join you. And yeah, so I actually joined her for the first session. I think I must have been about 15 or 16 at the time. And I just continued. I fell in love with it. And funny enough, she stopped shortly afterwards, but I continued training. And I even, after I started studying in moved cities, I continued training capoeira there, which eventually brought me to Brazil. And that was back in 2013. I absolutely loved capoeira, and it's something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And when I got to Brazil, I actually discovered jiu-jitsu there. And that's where I slowly started shifting my love of capoeira to Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So
that's really amazing, Christy. You know, there's a lot of people who don't understand the difference between different martial arts. Like, for example, when I was living in Jordan, I used to do taekwondo since like forever, since I was a kid. And everybody would see me, especially like family members, and they're like, oh, here comes the karate girl. I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, wait a second. It's not karate. And they're like, it's the same. I'm like, it's taekwondo. And they're like, it's fighting. It's the same. I'm like, no, there's a big difference. There's a big difference in rules and big difference in everything. But people they do not know this. And it's good to tell people that martial arts are different. They all, like, of course, they're for self-defense and self-confidence, but they're different, you know, techniques, systems. So it leads me to my next question for you. It's, what's the difference between capoeira and jiu-jitsu? And I mean, what's your really favorite about both of them?
Oh my gosh. So jiu-jitsu has totally won my heart, I must say. But they're both Brazilian martial arts. That's the one thing they do have in common, but otherwise they're entirely different. Capoeira is a striking martial art, so it involves a lot of kicks and circular strikes. And jiu-jitsu is a grappling martial art. So it's maybe, we wear a gi, but it's got roots, the same roots as judo, for those who know judo. And another example of a grappling sport that a lot of people, at least here in South Africa, would know is wrestling. We've got a prominent wrestling female in the house today as well from South Africa.
Oh, really? Who is she? Which one?
Jeannie Marie Kutsit. You can give her she can give a wave. Yeah, so she's very involved in empowering women on this side as well. And yeah, so but also what's very different is the history. So capoeira it's an Afro-Brazilian martial art, and it actually originated back when African slaves were transported to Brazil, and they wanted to engage in a form of training and combat that can assist them escape and to be prepared in an event of combat. So they brought the rich histories of African martial arts from the African continent to Brazil, and they started, which a lot of the martial arts practices here on the African continent involve people standing around in a circle and singing and clapping while two fighters in the middle are performing a certain fight. And so they brought that into Brazil as a way to disguise the fact that they were actually training a martial art from colonial authorities. So colonial authorities would pass by, they'd see a circle of people clapping hands and dancing and say, oh, they're just dancing, they're having fun, when meanwhile they were training for combat. So that's the history of capoeira. And then Brazilian jiu-jitsu has a very different history. Its roots is actually from Japan. Yeah. And it was actually brought from Japan by a Japanese man named Mitsuyo Maeda, and he taught the sons of a prominent Brazilian man named Gustavo Gracie, Gustavo had helped Mitsuyo a lot in his move from Japan to Brazil, and as a way of giving back, he decided to teach his sons, he had many of them, jiu-jitsu, which is a form of martial art that he had been trained in. So those are the two, the histories that are also very, very different.
Oh, that's amazing. I feel like if you're with me on this, that martial arts is bring back the community. So they bring people together. So it's like a form of also dancing or, training, just bringing communities back together. That's why martial arts is fascinating in bringing people together, and they share the same values. So how do you feel, Christy, martial arts changed your life?
Oh, wow. That's a big question, because it changed my life in a lot of ways. To be honest, my journey in martial arts hasn't been easy. It was, in martial arts spaces in capoeira, actually, where I experienced my first incident of sexual assault. And I experienced a lot of misogyny in spaces of martial arts that, in a way, I realized was something that I really wanted to change in the space. And I remember having those experiences here in South Africa and both in Brazil when I traveled then. And so in one way, when there were certain moments where I felt like I really, I was so sick and tired of seeing misogyny in the spaces. A lot of hierarchy can be imposed in ways that are not healthy and can be harmful to women. There were so many times where I just wanted to, throw in the towel and say I'm done with the space. But every single time I came back, I remembered how my jiu-jitsu practice, especially, but also capoeira, has really allowed for the full expression of my sense of identity. It's been a space where I experienced joy. It's been a space of significant personal growth, and I didn't want to give that up. And I think, so for me, when I decided every single time, because there were a number of times where I felt, I should, it's time to walk away. Every single time I decided to step back into the space, step back on the mat, it was really an act of resistance for me against a system of power that wasn't necessarily contributing to the well-being of women in this space. And it made me realize it was really something that I personally want to work on in this space, and I want to make sure that at least in my small contribution in the world, that women that are competing and training and participating in martial arts spaces are able to do so in a way that enables them to thrive and tap into their well-being. So that's the one thing. And I think as somebody as well, even outside of martial arts that has been a survivor of sexual violence, it's also been a space for me to reclaim my body. It's when I started training jiu-jitsu especially, and I started to train my body to compete and really started to professionalize my training in a way that I really had to take ownership and responsibility for my body in order to prepare and participate in competitions at high level. It was really for me also, again, like a political act of reclaiming my body and saying, this is my body and I will do with it what I please. And I really believe that even today, the place of women is on the mat, it's in the ring, that is where women are supposed to be. So for me, for every woman that trains martial arts, I think I know how difficult that journey is. And I think everyone has different experiences, but as soon as you start to take it seriously, and it's something that you become more and more visibilized in, people will target you to bring you down. And I think for every single woman that is training martial arts, it really is, I see it as an act of empowerment, of resistance against a system that tells us to be silent. So I find martial arts so empowering in that sense.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, you're talking to all martial artists here. They agree. They're like 100%. All these women need to be on the mats right now. But, some of them will tell you, like, I don't want to break my nails. I don't want to sweat. I don't want to wrestle with these disgusting men.
It's true. We all have those days.
Oh yeah, I met all these girls. I mean, I do love them. But I just give them the space also to enjoy training, even with long nails. It's okay, but don't scratch someone else. So you're a feminist, and a lot of people hate the word feminist or feminism. I think they don't even get what's the meaning of feminism. So my first question for you would be, what's your definition of feminism, and did you face any kind of problems with the society, women and men, by being identified as a feminist in South Africa?
Sure. So I think there are a lot of people that do identify themselves as feminists, and I think everyone is entitled to that identity, and people will express their feminism in different ways. I can explain at least what feminism is for me and how I express it, I feel. So for me, as a feminist, working in spaces addressing gender-based violence, looking at the way that I understand the world. I understand the world as one that is run by a system of patriarchy and its intersections, and that inform and often impact the lives of women, especially in the world, but also women across different intersections. It's one thing when you are oppressed as a woman. I think it's another thing when you are a Black woman, when you are a trans woman, when you're a homosexual woman, when you're a disabled woman, when you're a woman living in rural spaces, when you're a young woman, when you're a girl. Oh my gosh, you experience even more oppression and your identity opens up more opportunity for others to harm you. So I think, so for me, that's the one thing, is that I locate my work in the understanding of the world as being controlled by systems. And I mean, I really think, I mean, when we look at South Africa even, we have the 4th highest rate of femicide in the world. And
I heard.
The chances are is that statistic could even be higher, because a lot of women that are murdered in South Africa aren't even necessarily, their cases are not necessarily recorded as femicide. So we are the 4th highest, and it's our statistics are 5 times higher than the global average. So we really are in a country where women do face more harm. And how I engage my feminism in that is by saying that those incidences are not random. So it's not arbitrary that there's a high rate of femicide in South Africa. It's not when women are killed or face violence, it's not arbitrary. I believe that gender-based violence is a tactic that is used by people in our society and people that know us to harm us, to silence us, to disempower us.
Yeah.
And so for me, my work is an act of resistance against that system. I think it's important to push back against that system whenever we do work, especially work with women. So yeah, so I think in terms of where I experience pushback, it's actually from my family, funny enough. I'm really lucky to say that I have both my grandfathers still alive, but they do not get what I do. They honestly, they're like, oh, women's rights, what are you talking about? You know, they really don't get what I do. And I'm starting to see it now in my family. You know, my family is quite conservative, very religious, and I see now as my younger girl cousins are growing up, and some, you know, one or two of them are starting to, you know, explore their sexuality and think about different ways of being in the world. I'm seeing how, you know, my aunts, their mothers will kind of, you know, monitor when we're chatting, or, you know, try to keep us away because she doesn't want me to influence them, you know. So I see that a lot in my family. But I think, yeah, in terms of the world at large, I think when you do experience pushback, I think it's hard when you do experience that from your family. But I think for me, where it comes to other people that don't agree with the way I do things, I have had to actually tell myself that I can't engage with people that aren't committed to the same struggle that I am. Like, very simply, you know, if people, you know, the other day I was actually asked to assist an international organization do research on gender-based violence in South Africa. And they're a technology company, and they were so invested in creating this app that was going to, you know, change women's lives. And I asked them, you know, are these, you know, this app, you know, is this something that, you know, how is it being informed by the context of women's lived realities? And they couldn't tell me, they couldn't give me an answer. And they said, oh, but, you know, when we tried this app in another country, actually it had unintended consequences that harmed the participants. And I actually had to say, you know what, I can't work with you. You know, if you are not invested in informing your work through the lived realities of women and the communities that you're working with, we can't work together, because that's where the work needs to start. So that's, yeah, so I've had to also learn to take a step back sometimes and say, you know, actually I can't work with this. Or
I mean, definitely we work in communities where it's so hard to change people's minds. I mean, martial arts is actually changing also the people's mindsets. And it's, for women, it's, you actually had to do more hard work in order for these people to understand what you're trying to do, and you know, you're trying to bring in that community. But it needs a lot of time. I think if we keep working as a group, we're going to achieve that, but it needs a lot of time. People need to be patient about it. And regarding also the pressure coming from your family, I think that it always starts with the family. Someone is, you know, like, what are you doing in your life? Go get a job, get a real job. Go buy a house. At least until now, even my family keeps telling me that, what is that gender bait? What are you trying to do? Go get a real job. I'm like, I can't last 1 minute in a real job, so we're not having this discussion. Don't try. I'm gonna quit. If they don't fire me, I'm gonna quit. But I am also interested in talking to you about the more inner powers, inner journey. So, do you believe in dreams, Christy? My first question for you, like, do you really believe in, and what is your dream? We want to know your dream.
Oh my gosh. So yes, I 100% believe in dreams. I don't know, everyone has a different understanding of why they're in the world, but I really do believe that each one of us have a mission on this world to complete. And I believe, and these are my personal thoughts, but I believe that dreams are put into our minds to inform where we need to go and what our role is in this world. And so I 100% believe in dreams, and I think it's so important to pursue them. I think a lot of people become complacent with the idea of being small and living small. And I think it's so important to play big in the world, and it takes courage. It takes courage to do so. But I think the more of us that step up to the plate, I really do believe the more impact can be created in the world for it to be a better place in general. So my dream, for a long time,
we're gonna hunt through a dream now.
Yeah, for a long time, my dream was to be a Brazilian black belt, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt world champion. And that was, it was like the one thing that I really wanted. And I still have that as a part of my dream. But my dream has somewhat expanded to the point where I want to be a champion, full stop. Like I want to be a black belt world champion, but I also want to be able to step on the mat and know that no matter who I'm facing, I can beat that person. I want that feeling of invincibility, you know, to have that confidence and that inner strength to know that whatever situation I face, I'm able to overcome it. And it's not only on the mat. I know a lot of my training informs that, but it's in life, of course. And you know, the more I think about it, when I think about how I want to live out my life, I really want to be remembered as somebody that is kind. I want to be remembered as somebody that is generous, that is supportive of other people. And I want to be remembered for having a strong character and a good work ethic. And that's really committed to the realization of gender justice in my immediate community and in the world. So that I know, I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh yeah, I mean,
my dream is.
I mean, definitely, you don't want to be remembered by these little kids, you know, telling you we don't like her. You know, she's a really bad coach, and she makes me do extra push-ups. I don't like her. Especially nowadays. Oh my God, with the new generation, I'm like, you know, leave your iPad, get on the training mat, and with the new generation, they just know how to argue. They're like, why? You tell me, why do I need to get on that? I'm like, when I was your age, I did not even have a voice when my master was like, right now, 10 push-ups.
Yeah, I am the person that makes them do extra push-ups on the mat, though. But I hope they'll look at it afterwards and say it was a good thing, that it benefited them.
So don't worry, you're going to be remembered really good by the new generation.
Yeah.
They're going to say, maybe we loved her, maybe, you know, like, but they're going to love you after they just become 30 years old. They're like, oh, that's good. You know, I did not gain a lot of weight. So it's because of my teacher.
It's because of my coach. Yeah.
And I don't know why I hated her.
That would be great.
So my other question for you would be about championships. Have you lost a championship before? And if yes, how did you feel about it?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've lost a lot of championships. I've actually lost more than I've won. So I actually competed in my very first competition a month after I started training jiu-jitsu. Oh. And jiu-jitsu, it's actually a great sport for somebody that's new to martial arts. And that's for anyone out there that might be interested in training it, because you actually compete against your same belt level. So as a white belt, I could go in and train and compete against somebody that's in my weight category, in the same belt category as me. And I remember going into that competition saying, oh, you know, I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to see how things go. And I remember arriving on the day, and there were no other girls signed up in my weight category. So I had to sign up for the weight category above mine. And I just looked at these girls and I started thinking, oh my gosh, they look so strong. Like, I don't know if I can do this. And I mean, we're all white belts, we're all new to this thing. But what's cool about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a lot of white belts have had previous experience in other martial arts. So they will be champion, I don't know, Muay Thai champions or wrestling champions. And they come onto the mat and I remember just being absolutely terrified. And I lost terribly in that first competition. And I remember being so frustrated with myself. But after that, I think the more I lost, the more it was an opportunity for me to recognize that losses are part of the journey. And that when we lose, we actually open ourselves up the opportunity to learn more. And especially as an athlete, when you're taking your sport seriously, loss is really a fantastic opportunity to look into your game and see where the gaps are. The times that I've won, I have not analyzed I have not gone back and looked at my fights and been like, oh, where did I go wrong? No, I won. Like I feel happy and I don't think about it again. But the times that I've lost, I've watched those videos over and over and over again. And so I think that's one lesson that I learned, and I think it's something that I've even applied into my own life. You know, when you really push the barrier of what you think you're capable of and who you think you are, you need to take risks. You need to put yourself in situations that you're unused to. And so there's been times where I've competed where I've just said, okay, I'm going to try this new technique that I've been working on, or actually I'm going to enter with this mentality as opposed to that mentality, and I've lost. But it's been an opportunity for me to refine what I know and really get to understand, because there's a recipe to success, and I believe that, at least. And I think for every single person, in terms of winning a competition, there is a certain mentality, there's a certain preparation, there's how you decide to cut weight before the competition. All those things put together become a meeting for success. So I think that's something that for me is really important to acknowledge when I compete.
I mean, I remember the first time I did my championship, I lost badly. I was knocked down.
I don't believe it.
And, I swear, I was like a blue belt, and I was going against a black belt, and my coach was like, "You got it." I was like 13 years old, and which is like, I was completely like sure, because my coach kept telling me, like, you can do it. I'm like, I'm gonna win,
Yeah.
And when I got on the mat, he like kicked me so hard. It was like, it's called a backside kick. It's like a jump backside kick, even in the stomach, and I could not breathe. And that's it. It was knocked down.
Oh my gosh.
And then after that, my coach told me, you know what? The first time you always have to lose, and then later on you're gonna win. Don't worry. I'm like, no, I lost. You don't know how I feel. I think everybody hates the feeling of losing, but you need it to encourage you and push you to keep going forward in your, like building and working on yourself more and more and more. It's not just like you have to win all the time. That's what people get it. Sometimes you just have to lose a lot. Even in and one important thing to tell everybody, that losing has no age. Like, you can lose when you're 40. You can lose when you're like, you can fail, and we've seen it a lot. Like, you reach the stars and suddenly like, or like some people make a lot of money on their 20s and then lose everything on their 30s, but like a lot of people think that failures should be in the early life, like when you're 18, 19. You can fail as much as you can, but it's like a journey. You're gonna go up and down all the time. You're gonna fail a lot. You're gonna win sometimes, and it's just, you have to keep going, and it should not affect you. The higher you get, it's gonna be even harder to fall, but it should not affect you at all. You should keep going strong in life. And I want to ask you this also, like, one last question before we finish.
All right.
I'm so happy with this interview that I don't want it to end, but we can definitely have more interviews with,
of course.
In the future. But do you like the world we live in today? And if yes, or if no, what do you like to improve during your journey on this planet? What do you like to add to life?
It's a beautiful question.
Everybody's not like a waste of air in this life. You need to add something and bring in something to this life. So what would you like to improve in this world?
Wow. Yeah, I think when you ask, do I like the world we live in today? I think there's, there is so much wrong with the world that I would also be lying if I said that there wasn't also, if I was saying it, sorry, I would be lying if I said the world wasn't full of beauty as well, and it's full of inspiration. And in the face of world systems that are trying to bring us down, there's a lot of examples of people that are really living out the full expression of their humanity, that are stepping up against all odds, that are absolutely resilient in the face of trials. And I think those things are so important to note when we think of the world as a place that should be improved, to know that the answers are already there. There are people that are living out the world that we want to create. And so for me, I imagine, of course, a world free of violence, which is something that I would love to contribute towards. And I think, as a martial artist and somebody in the space, while the martial arts world has been a place where I have experienced violence, and it's been a place where I've experienced misogyny, it's also been a space where I have had incredible personal growth, and it's really been some of my highest, most ecstatic, most joyful moments have been on the mat. And so for me, I really want to work in this space and invest time and effort here. And so I'm doing a number of different projects at the moment, but I'm really thinking about, you know, how can we create an environment for women in martial arts that really does enable them to thrive. How do we enable a space that allows women to take ownership of that space and really allows them to say, hey, this is a place where I belong, and that no matter what happens to them on the mat or on the competition space, that they know that is a place where they can feel safe and come home to, you know, and continue to experience personal growth in that space. So that's something for me that I'm really invested in. At the moment, I'm actually doing some research that LINA, you're actually a part of, looking at a feminist approach to self-defense and thinking about, you know, what would a feminist approach to self-defense even look like? You know, how do we teach martial arts and fighting in a way that doesn't say to women, you are victims, you're vulnerable, and that's why you need to train, but actually you've got agency, you've got power within you that you have the ability to tap into. So how do we really, you know, connect with our inner power, connect with the inner strength that already exists inside of us, in order to ensure that we live a life that has well-being, that we live lives that are joyful. So
yeah, I mean, definitely when I look at this world we live in, I always think about it's what the people inner feelings that they bring into this world and they build it that way. So imagine if you're full of hate and anger and negativity, you're gonna also reflect that in our world, and you're gonna build something negative. That's why you see a lot of places that has more problems and wars and struggles. It's because there's a lot of negativity especially in between leaders, that they're bringing inside what they feel inside outside in real life. And that's how like their world, living from inside, reflecting it, showing it in real life. And when I think about how I feel deep inside, it's all about, you know, bringing love, bringing people together, bringing communities back together. I'm against people just being by themselves all the time, or just being isolated, or even behind, or being with technologies all the time, because we are social human beings, and we need to connect with others in order to grow and in order to live and not be sick in the future. That's why I feel like what we can do, which we have an amazing tool now, which is a technology. You can use it for that. We can bring and empower all these individuals like you, Christy, and other women here, even in the group. They're all like martial artists and fighters, and bring back the communities of women, and ending violence against women, and even like just empowerment and bringing more positive energy to life, because we need more of that. We're done with like all these bad news everywhere. We're bringing good vibes only.
Yes, and what you said about community, I think, is so important. I think the world today profits off our sense of loneliness, of our sense of isolation. Gender-based violence targets us in a way that makes us feel lonely. And I think when we decide to create networks and to support one another, we really are acting against a system that tries to silence us and bring us down. So I think those support networks are so important and are really critical to our sense of well-being as well.
But sometimes we need to silence those little kids that keep arguing in the class.
I love the kids that argue.
Oh my God, they always like argue. They even like tell me, they raise their hands and they're like, "Why do you look like that? I think you're a boy." I'm like, well, you need to shut up, or I give you extra punishment if you. No, I mean, I love kids. They bring really positive energy, but some kids, sometimes you're like, you talk too much.
Oh no, no, it's so good.
I have a question here from Janelle. She wants to ask you, what is one piece of advice you would give to young girls and women?
Oh, wow. Yeah, so I think for young girls and women, I think um, it's such a big question, but and it's hard to put into practice. But I want to encourage women not to be fearful and to live in fear. I think we all have a sense of identity that is so unique, and we are perfectly placed in the world to do the work that we are meant to do in the world. And so I think when we try to hide any expression of our identity, or when we try to when we become complacent with being silent, we actually we don't serve the world in the way that we are meant to. So I really think that, you know, for young girls, speak up, be that annoying kid in the class that points out things that are wrong. Like, I think it's so important to really yeah, not to be fearful of that. And I think even in martial arts spaces, I see a lot of young girls that come into the space. And you know what martial arts spaces are like. I mean, there's so much hierarchy, and a lot of that hierarchy is good, and it provides a sense of respect and discipline amongst the people in the class. But at the same time, a lot of the times hierarchy is used to impose power in ways that aren't necessarily good, and can harm people in the space. And so I see a lot of young women coming into the space that perhaps don't know how to engage with that hierarchy. And I want to say, you know, for young women walking into space, especially if you're a beginner in a martial art, be prepared to respect somebody that first respects you. I think it's so important to acknowledge that before we are white belts and black belts and champions and people that lose, we are first human beings that need to be respected. And so I think in any space that you walk into, whether it's a new job or a new place of you know, martial arts space, whether it's even in the home, you know, we're first human beings that need to be respected before you are a father or a child. So those are that would be the piece of advice that I give.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely we have to respect adults, but at the same time, adults need to respect us, or like even we need to respect kids. Kids need to respect us back. And I think also if you it's respect and love is more as investment, and the more you invest in that person or those groups of people in adding more to their lives, more like love and like really investment, it's like growing seeds. So you need to plant it and you need to water it, you need to take care of it by also putting a lot of time and listening to them, not being on your mobile all the time and tell them I'm gonna spend some quality time with the kids, but you're technically disconnected if you think about it. You're not listening to them, you don't hear their stories, their imaginations, you're not drawing with them. And I've seen it in adults all the time. They say, oh, I spend quality time with the kids, but all they do is just like sit with them, but they're on their phone busy. So they're disconnected, like they're trying to be connected, but disconnected at the same time. So definitely love is an investment. So
Yeah.
I'm like, this conversation can go forever, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
But you're so right. Yeah, I think kids they're not the leaders of tomorrow, they're the leaders of today. I think kids, they are observing us as adults. I think they know they have a lot of answers that we don't give them credit for. And I think there needs to be more space for open communication with kids, especially when we're working with kids in martial arts spaces. They've got things that are really, that add a lot of value to that space that we need to give them credit for.
Oh, definitely. And we need to tell them that don't stop your imagination, because at some point they will stop imagining their lives, or even having this amazing imagination. They will stop at some point. And that's what kills creativity, and that's what kills our brains. It's just we kind of wire everybody to be in a system, and it's like robots. But we need to unlock all these powers we have within us as a human beings. So I'm just so happy, Christy. We have this discussion, and I would like, I mean, yeah, if there's more questions. No, there's no more questions. If you enjoyed that conversation and you want to see more of it, please email me at info@shefighter.com. Give me your feedback about it. I would like let's give a big round of applause to Christy for it. And yay! some
thank you
virtual.
to you for attending. Thank you to everyone.
No, thank you, really, Christy. She's the one who inspired me. Like, we kind of need to start this, connecting all these amazing martial artists, women martial artists all over the world, and not just also martial artists, like even women entrepreneurs, women who just want to just thrive, or to change the world in a good way, and even looking for their own voices and their own journeys. So this is a platform for us to all meet. And I'm so excited we started this. Even we had some technical problems at the beginning. We're gonna solve that. So thank you so much for joining us today. And if you want to get the latest updates from SheFighter, if you did not subscribe to our website, subscribe on shefighter.com. And we have launched recently the online trainers program. I would encourage you to register if you want to join the SheFighter movement. It's on shefighter.com/online courses, and you will have like 3 days free trial. And if you want to stay connected to all this amazing group, I have done like a group on Facebook called the SheFighter Empowerment Zone. Go ahead and join that group to stay connected with all these amazing women. And I will be interviewing different women and martial artists and different backgrounds every week. And if, as I said, send me your feedback at info@shefighter.com. So thank you again, Christy, for your time and what you're doing for women. Keep doing that. And have an awesome, great weekend, everybody. So take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.